My name is Hira Fernando, and I am originally from Sri Lanka. I am Sri Lankan. My family left Sri Lanka in the mid 1980s. My father got an assignment with the United Nations in Switzerland, and after that, after school, I went to the international school and did the international baccalaureate. And then after that, ended up in England for university. I got a undergraduate degree in government and politics, and then also did a master's in law and LLM. Um, and I think a lot of that was just driven by my father's influence. I don't particularly recall that I was very focused or ambitious or knew what I wanted to do, and so I think he's the person who really guided those initial steps, and then I actually returned to Switzerland and worked there for some years. And then in 2002, moved to the United States for an MBA. And then since then, I have been in the US in Washington, D.C. So I would say, I mean, my connections to Sri Lanka are very strong. I'm a very, very proud Sri Lankan. My parents always made sure that, when we were growing up, they always took us home every year, in the summer or Christmas time. And we speak, I speak very good Sinhala, I think. And so does my brother. He was only 7 when we left. And still, I think we are very, my family, we speak in Sinhalese. Any opportunity I have when I'm back home, that's just a natural thing. And actually, I go home very often now because my parents, who used to be in Switzerland, returned to Sri Lanka after they retired. And so they're there. And as it so happens, my brother, who was in Singapore until recently, is also in Colombo at the moment. And so I am, back and forth constantly visiting home. And so, yeah, I would say my connections are still very strong. And, if you want to hear me being Sri Lankan and speaking Sinhala, you should, there's a video, maybe we can put the link at the bottom here. That's just me on a trip to Anuradhapura with my mother a few years back, and asking all these questions from the guide. And, if anyone has any doubt about my Sinhalese, that's probably a good video to check out. um, so the tech scene in Sri Lanka, I know mostly about it through. I have a few friends who are part of that scene, and or the startup scene, the entrepreneurial scene, all of that. And then I also, of course, my brother from the work that he's doing. I think he just knows a lot about what's going on, and so through those conversations, I've learned a lot. And my understanding is that it is a very vibrant and really, really exciting time to be in this space in Sri Lanka. So, it's almost like the tech industry and the startup industry in many ways, like in the US, it's pretty mature. And, India, for example, was really big and really hot maybe about 5 years ago, or even more than that. And then it seems to me, from what I'm reading and what I'm understanding, that Sri Lanka is very much at that exciting early stage, the nascent stage, when there's a lot of enthusiasm by young people who want to get into this space, and just a lot of mentors and investors. And so I think what's really positive is the fact that we are at that really great time, and there are a lot of opportunities. I think I was specifically asked about potential challenges or issues, and the only thing I can sort of extrapolate from my experience with sort of the tech industry, startup industry in other countries, other parts of the world, is that usually this is a time also where, because there's so much enthusiasm, it can create a little bit of a bubble. Lots and lots of young people have great ideas, and that's wonderful. But as they say, it's not really the idea, it's the execution, and it's not easy. It's a tough process, and so I do think there is things will shake out, and it some people may end up being disappointed. And I think that's normal. That's okay. I would say that still overall, if you ask me, I think the positives of where Sri Lanka is with the startup community and with the tech community and entrepreneurial interest in entrepreneurial activities, I think is overall, by and large, the positives very much outweigh the challenges. So a little bit about me and how I sort of stumbled upon my path. So as I said, my education, so I went to LSE, the London School of Economics. I got the undergraduate and then the master's, and then I returned to Switzerland, and then in 2002 arrived in the United States and did my MBA at Penn. So I have this very interesting history of wild career swings. And now looking back, it all makes sense. But I would be lying to you if I said I knew what I was doing. I didn't. I started out as a sort of like a junior legal officer working for a nonprofit in international trade and WTO issues in Geneva, and then made this massive career switch into finance, banking, mostly because I was influenced by my friends who had all gone into investment banking, and then my brother, who's 3 years behind me, had graduated by this time, and he was working in private equity, and I'm just I was like, oh, that seems to be like the greatest thing at the moment. And this is just before kind of like riding up to that whole dot-com boom and all of that. So I didn't know a single thing about finance, and I still managed to get hired by Merrill Lynch. And then after Merrill, I worked for Citi. And then during my MBA, I worked the summer in the Lehman Brothers in sales and trading. And then after my MBA, I worked for the World Bank. And after the World Bank, I worked for WRI, World Resources Institute, which is a nonprofit that works in the environmental field. And then from WRI, I was hired into AMR Research, which is more corporate research outfit, and then Gartner bought AMR Research. And so, like I said, to summarize, there's been this crazy career swings, and at some point, I decided that I can't keep doing this. It's I clearly seem to be good at getting the jobs, but not that good at doing them. And so, it was this pattern of 2 to 3 years, I would want to make a big change. And so I just thought, I can't keep doing this. It just seemed it didn't seem like would lead to long-term happiness for me. It didn't seem very stable. And also, ultimately, it didn't seem very ethical either to keep, sort of getting these jobs and promising so much and, delivering in the beginning. And then, I would always hit that point where I'm not inspired. And then when I'm not inspired, I don't perform very well. And, everyone's disappointed. And so that's just not a very good way to, sort of make a contribution to this world. And so, in 2012, I was just done, and I decided to be a career coach, and that's So that was a pretty random decision, but there was some instinct behind it. There were at least 3 things that kind of drove me to do this, and it was. And to be clear, at the time, we were not a startup, we were not a tech, we were not, it was just a small business, basically me declaring that I'm a career coach. And the reason why I picked coaching and career specifically is because I had done all these careers, and I had so much expertise in so many different careers that young people are interested in doing. And I also, like I said, I'm very good at getting the job. So I don't think there's ever been a single time that I've interviewed for a job and not gotten it. Like it's literally, I've gotten jobs I had no business getting, like that Lehman Brothers trading floor thing. I mean, that was just completely not a good fit, and somehow I managed to get past their screening, recruiting, process. But it was just the fact that I seem to have a skill in kind of the chase, in the strategy of getting the job and all of that. And so I thought, well, I mean, instead of doing this myself every 3 years and kind of instead I should just help other people. It's a little bit of a special talent, bizarre skill to have, but certainly, there are people who are genuinely interested in working at these very renowned and prestigious institutions. And so I thought, the career piece was clear to me. And then I think the third element was the counts. I'd always sort of felt like I was the go-to person and everyone would comment on that. I was always the person that everybody went to with their troubles. And then, especially even from when I was young, I remember that I'm the one who wrote or reviewed college applications and essays for my cousins and my friends. And then later on, resumes and job applications. And I seem to just love doing that. And so there was that. And then finally, and this is very important, I think, for people who are trying to, who may not be happy in their careers and are confused or trying to make a career switch or thinking of maybe leaving and starting their own thing, to look at the pattern. I mean, in my case, like I said, it was a pretty wild, I'd done everything from law to banking to international development to corporate research. So, but it seemed like there was some key underlying themes. And, what I realized is that any piece where I am simplifying subject matter and talking about it, presenting about it, teaching, training, mentoring or coaching the younger people who are arriving at the firms. I did well there. I also did very well with clients. So anything with building relationships with people. So with clients, it wasn't so much like, I obviously was not very good at, all the data stuff and the analytical, whatever. I would just kind of get through that. And then, but what I loved was converting that analysis into a relevant story and explaining it to clients. And I think they appreciated that. And I really liked that. And so these were all clues to me as to, why career coaching, and so that's how I ended up becoming a career coach in 2012. And I set up just basically a very small business. And that was the beginning of what has been an incredible adventure. Thank you.